Hi, my name is Balloons, and today I'll be giving you a video walkthrough on cadence testing. Specifically, I'm going to utilize the walkthrough that you can find on the QA Team's wiki page, which I actually have here in front of me, and I will provide a link to down below this video. To start with, let's define what cadence testing is, and I'm actually going to utilize the link that you can find at the top of this walkthrough. So let's just go ahead and click that. Essentially, cadence testing is just a term that we utilize to describe our method for regular testing throughout a development cycle. In this case, we've chosen a time frame of 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks we focus on different packages and various aspects of Ubuntu to test. Um, we have a schedule that we follow, and you can see that we've actually linked out to that schedule for RARing. And here's the past things that we've tested thus far in this development cycle. You can see that we're on week 6 currently, and we actually have 11 weeks planned. Okay, so let's talk about the requirements and prerequisites before we get started. Essentially, we're going to use the QA tracker to get our test cases and then to submit our results. So we'll need to understand what the QA tracker is, and we'll need to have a Launchpad or Ubuntu SSO account to be able to log in and submit our results. And the other piece of this for the cadence testing is that we need a updated image or up-to-date installation of Ubuntu running, in this case, Ubuntu RARing or whatever the current version of Ubuntu +1 or Ubuntu development is. So before we go any further, let's briefly cover what the QA tracker is. There's actually another video in my uploads that describes and talks a little bit more about the QA tracker. So if curious, you can watch that in addition to having a look at this page. Basically, the QA tracker is just a site that allows us to serve up test cases, to hold milestones, to hold events, and then to collect results and coordinate bugs that we might find and that sort of thing. And there's three main instances of the QA tracker. In this case, we're going to use the packages instance, which is utilized for anytime we want to test specific packages of Ubuntu. Okay, so as we mentioned, we're going to actually use a live image of Ubuntu to test, as opposed to an up-to-date installation of Ubuntu. And you can see that there's some instructions here. You can actually head over to the CD image repository as it shows and just download one of these. And in this case, I could choose, for instance, the 64-bit AMD 64 ISO. Or you can utilize this tool called Test Drive, which you can actually see over here on the left, to download the ISO for you. And I've actually already synced, as we can see, today's latest version of Ubuntu AMD 64 ISO, and so we're ready to begin. So let's go ahead and open the package tracker here and get logged in. As you can see, I'm actually already logged in as nskags, so I'm ready to go. We want to test Cadence week 6. We can see that the status is testing. The other ones are released, and we can't submit any results for old Cadence weeks. And it looks like we have 3 actual packages to choose from. For our purposes, I'm actually going to choose Nautilus. We can see that Nautilus has one set of test cases to run through, and so we can go ahead and click those. Let's go back to the tutorial quickly. You can see that we've selected our milestone. We took a look at the packages and decided that we were going to test Nautilus. We saw the test cases. And then the final things to note are the installation instructions and bug reporting instructions. For Nautilus, if we click installation instructions, there are none. Nautilus is installed by default, so we don't have to add anything special. And so we're ready to begin this test case. So let's go ahead and launch our image. I can't actually click the launch button in test drive at the moment because of a bug which should hopefully be fixed soon. So I've actually just manually created the virtual machine instead, and you can see here in VirtualBox, and I'm going to go ahead and start it. And this is just going to load up, and I'm going to actually tell it to load a live session by selecting try Ubuntu without installing, and that will go ahead and load me into a live session of Ubuntu. And then once we're inside that session, we can go ahead and execute this test case. If we look at our walkthrough here, essentially it describes the test case format, which we can see. We have an action to perform, which is bolded, and then in the italics below that action, we have the expected result for the action, and you can see that follows pretty uniformly. Sometimes you may not have an expected result for an action, as you can see, but in general, when you have an expected result, make sure the expected result matches. Okay, so the next step is really just executing the test case, and then we can take a look at what we might need to do after the test case to submit our result. Okay, so our live session is now loaded, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the first step. Look for a terminal and launch it. So I'm going to go ahead and open the dash here, and type in terminal, and then give it a launch. And sure enough, the terminal opened. So we're moving on to step 2. Oops. If I can type, we will get the instruction followed properly. There we are. And indeed, the terminal returns the prompt. Now it's asking for us to launch Novelist. That's simple enough. And we want to make sure that the home Novelist open and home is selected, and that is also correct. So finally, step 4, it wants me to create a new document using empty document, and then name the resulting file moveme.txt. It's asking if a empty file was created, and sure enough, it looks like it was. I can see that it's 0 bytes, and if I look and open it, sure enough, it's empty. Now, while I was executing step number 4, I noticed that there's this empty document and empty documents, which is a bit confusing, and so I'm wondering if that's actually a bug. So we can talk a little bit about another feature of the tracker quickly, and that is if you look at the very bottom, there's this wonderful section called bugs, and we have bugs to look for. So I'm going to go ahead and just hover over these, and it looks like this is the bug that I might be talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and open it, take a look. Sure enough, after creating a blank file, there are 2 empty document options. That's correct. That's exactly what happened to us. So in this case, we don't actually need to report this bug ourselves. Instead, we can just go ahead and grab this bug number and add it to a bug for a result. And note that I'm putting this in the bugs field and not the critical bugs field, because the test case still actually passed, and we can record it as a passed result, even though we had this bug occur. So I'm not going to finish the rest of these tests, but you can see now how to do cadence testing, how to report a bug, and then how to ultimately submit a result. And if we take a look quickly at the walkthrough, it talks a little bit as well about this bug section and how to determine the results, and then ultimately giving a submission. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helps.